Hello everyone, I'm back today with another video. So before I start the video, I would like to tell you guys that from now on I'll be using Python 3.6. This is because one of you guys pointed out in the comments below that why am I using Python 2.7, because Python 2.7 is going to end its life pretty soon, I think in the end of 2019. So from now on I'm just going to be using Python 3.6, so just wanted to let you guys know about that. And now to get to today's topic. Today's topic is I made a video about how to generate a comparison report between two text files, but one of you guys pointed it out that it does not work too well. Actually, it doesn't work at all if they're very large files. Python can't, the difflib library is not able to handle it too well. So I tested it myself, and that's the case. So I thought to myself, how can we fix this? So the fix is pretty big. It's a dirty fix, but it's quick, so I think it should be fine. So I have two files here, file 1 and file 2. Both of the files have over 2,000 lines, and I'm trying to compare it and create the comparison report, but it won't be possible because Python won't be able to handle it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break these two files into smaller files. Each file will contain around 100 lines, so that will be easier for Python to handle. And then we're going to get a whole bunch of outputs, and we're going to merge all the outputs and create one large file and return the result as a one HTML file. So that's how we're going to do it. It's going to take a bit of time, but hope you guys stick around with me till the end. Okay, so for today's video, we're going to be using difflib. We're going to be using for regex. We're going to be using os because we're going to do a lot of file handling. And finally, we're going to use time. We're going to import time because I want to time how long it takes. So to do that, we're going to create a variable start time.time. It's going to take the time at the beginning of the video, in the beginning of the program, and then end, it's going to take the time at the end once the program has finished running. And then we're going to print out how long it took for the program to run. So end minus start. Remember that since it's Python 3, we need to use the brackets for print function. And another thing is we need to, the end minus start is going to return a float value. So to be able to add it to the to join it with a string, we need to convert it into a string using the string function. Okay, so that's out of the way. Now let's go into the video itself. So first off, I want to create a variable called path. It's gonna store my the path of the files I'll be using. Let's see, okay, so there you go. And okay, now we're gonna create another variable called first file. First file will be path plus, the first file is file1 .txt, and then the second file is path plus file2 .txt. Okay, now we have two variables containing the paths of the two files. Now these files are huge. We need to break them down. Okay, so to do that, we're going to first create them into a list. We're going to open the two files using the open function, first file, and we're going to open it in the read mode, so we pass an R, and then we're going to read lines. Okay, we're going to do the same, SF for the second file, pass in the second file, once again read mode, and read lines. Okay, now we have two lists, and two of the lists contain a lot of elements because every line has been turned into an element in the list. So what are we going to do is we're going to create chunks of the list, and each chunk will contain 100 elements. To do that, we're going to create a function, def chunks. Wow, my typing skills. Okay, def chunks, and we're going to pass in two parameters, L and N. L is the list, and N is the number of elements we want to break it into. So L here it's going to be ff, and n, we want 100 elements in every list, so n is going to be 100. Okay, now for I in range 0, length L, and n. Okay, what is this? What's happening here is we gave it a range. The range, it starts from 0, ends at the length of L, and n is the number of times it's going to skip over. So basically, usually what happens in loops is loops go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But what happens here is it's going to actually skip the value of n. So let's say it's 0, and let's say this one is 10, and let's say n is 2. So it's actually going to be 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. It won't be 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's how we're going to actually split the list. We're going to create a generator by using yield and L I colon I plus n. So in the first loop, when I is 0, it'll be 0 to 100. When I is 0, and let's say n is 100 because we want 100 in every chunk. So it's going to be 0 to 100, and the second loop it's going to be 100 to 200, and then 200 to 300, and so on. Okay, now that we have the function, but now the issue is we want this code only to run if our file is over 100 lines. If it's less than 100 lines, we can just use the code I showed you in the video I've already made. So to do that, we need to use the length function to get the length of ff and the length of sf. So we create a if condition. So if the length of ff or length of sf is greater than 100, then only you will run this. Otherwise, you don't need to run this. And now we create another variable, ff underscore length, to store the length of ff, and we do the same for sf. Okay, now we have the two variables. Now we want to make sure the length of the two lists are the same. If the length are not the same, it's going to cause more problems, and we don't want that. So we're going to check ff length not equal. If it's not equal to sf, exclamation mark equal means not equal. So if it's not equal, what do we want to do? We want to check which one is larger. If ff length is larger, we want to actually add in dummy elements inside so that they actually become equal size. So we create a for loop for x in range ff length. We don't know how long the range will be, so we pass in ff length minus sf length. Whatever the difference is, we want it to loop that many times, and every one of those times we want to append. We use the append function to put in a new line. It's just a dummy line so that they become equal sizes and it's easier for us to handle. And of course, here in this case, ff is longer. What if sf is longer? So if sf is longer, we're going to do the same, except we're going to just swap it. And instead of appending to sf, we're going to append to ff. Okay, there you go. So now we handled this situation as well. Okay, now we're going to use the function chunks to actually break it down. So we're going to create fflist. Fflist is now going to contain more lists, and each list will be at least 100 elements. So we're going to use chunks. We're going to pass ff, and we're going to pass in 100 because we want 100 for every chunk. Now remember that this is actually returning a generator. To make the generator useful, we need to put it inside the list function so that we get back a list. We're going to do the same for sflist, and we're going to use the chunks function, and we're going to pass in sf and 100. So now we have two lists, and these lists contain chunks of ff and sf, and every chunk is around at least 100 elements. Okay, so we have that. Now what we want to do is we want to create a dictionary, because one thing you need to understand is we need the list, and we also need the list in a file format. So we're also going to have to create a bunch of dummy files with the contents of the file. So to do that, we want to loop through a dictionary. Inside the dictionary, we're going to have ff colon ff list. So basically the string ff corresponds to the list ff list, and the string sf corresponds to the SF list. Okay, so now we have dictionary. Now we want to loop through the dictionary. So to do that, for key comma value in dictionary dot items. That's how you loop through a dictionary. Okay, and we also want to create a counter n is equal to 0. Now we create another for loop for element in value. So basically here, key is ff or sf, and value is ff list or sf list. First, it will loop this one, and then it will loop this one. So when it's looping this one, it'll take ff list as value, and then remember ff list in itself is a list, right? So we want to loop through that list, and when we are looping through that list, we actually want to create our first dummy file. Okay. So the first dummy file, let's call it file temp. Let's call it ff 0.txt. Okay, but here you already understand that there is a problem. The first problem is ff. We can't just call it ff. It might also be sf in the second loop. And this second thing is, we know that there is many chunks. There's just not one chunk. So both these values need to be dynamic. So to do that, what we're going to do here is, instead of passing ff, we're going to pass in the value of key, because we know key is ff or sf. And here, instead of just passing in 0, we're going to use parentheses, and inside the parentheses we're going to use the format function, and we're going to pass in n. N is the counter, remember? So when this loop is going on, in the beginning n is 0, and then n is 1, 2, 3, and so on. So we'll have a whole bunch of dummy files. And remember, we need to write the dummy file, so we're going to use the W mode and as F. Okay. Now remember that to write, like every element is actually in itself containing another list. So we need to loop through that as well, because every element is line. So for line in element f dot, we're going to use the write function to write this down. Okay, now we're going to have a whole bunch of files. Okay, now let's see. After this, what we want to do, actually we just want to, we want to kind of keep something for debugging. So we're going to have a print function to just make sure that it's actually printing the way we want it to print. File temp I just hope I don't make any mistake, because there's a lot of things going on here. So we just give a little note to ourselves that it's actually creating it. Okay. Oh, one more thing is, we need to make sure that we are incrementing our counter. Otherwise, it's just going to be 0 all the time. So we increment this counter over here. Okay. So now we're going to have a whole bunch of dummy files. Now what we want to do is, we want to make use of the dummy files, right? So we create another loop for I in range length ff list. Remember, at this point ff list and sf list are the same, so you can use either, because over here we handled that. Okay, so over here we use our first chunk. In this variable we store the value of our first chunk. File temp ff, and then the parentheses dot txt format 1. Okay, and we do the same for the second chunk, path This way we're going to be able to actually get the file path of every of the dummy files. After this, we want to use difference. This is similar to my video I made earlier. Difflib html diff makefile. Inside the makefile, we want to pass in the list ff, the first element, and then sf list, and then we want to pass in the first chunk. First chunk is basically the path of the first dummy file, and then the second chunk. And remember that as the loop goes on, it will loop through all the chunks. Okay, now the problem here is, if you remember from my earlier video, this one is actually returning a string, and this string is actually the code needed to create our HTML file. But the problem here is we want to once we're looping through it, we want to add on to this, and the thing is, every time it's going to create the code to create an entire file. We don't want the entire file, we just want to add the contents of the table, not the entire file. So if you actually look through this code, you will see that there is something called the tbody tag. We are interested in what is inside the tbody tag. So what we're going to do is, for the first time when I is equal to 0, the first loop, we're just going to keep it as it is, and we're going to call it difference 0. But for the second loop, after this, everything after this, we're going to just be interested in the contents of the table. We won't be interested in the code to make the whole file, because the code to make the whole file will be the same. Okay, so we're just going to repeat this. Oops. Oh, missed the D. Okay. And we won't call it difference 0. We're just going to call it difference, and we're going to do this way. Now, remember that this one is giving the code for the whole file. We just are interested in tbody. So we're going to create a variable called tbody, and we're going to try to just grab the tbody. To do that, difference is a string. To slice up the string, we're going to have to find the position of the first tbody. To do that, we use the find function, and we pass in our string tbody. So it's going to take the position of tbody, and then we want it to go on all the way, colon dot find the end of the tbody tag. This is how we're going to do it. But now here the thing is, this one will start from here. We want it to start from the end of the tbody, so we're going to have to add in the length of the tbody. So we're just going to plus length tbody. Okay, so now it's going to be able to slice out the tbody. But now, after I ran the whole code, I found out the problem was every time it's actually creating the difference, it's thinking that it's a unique file. So it's going to index it from 0 to 100, 0 to 100. So when we merge them all together, it's going to be like 0 to 100, then 0 to 100, 0 to 100, and it's going to be a problem. So we need to use some pattern matchings to actually handle that. So the way to handle that is, we're going to make this string into a list called tbody list, and we're going to tbody list equals to tbody dot split. We're going to split it along the new line. Okay, now what happens here is we create another counter, n is equal to 1, and here we use a for loop for line in tbody list. And another thing I saw is that the first and the last are just new lines, not useful for us. We're just gonna, the range will be 1 colon minus 1. So we don't want to loop through the last, the first and the last. So now we're gonna create the pattern. We're gonna use the search function to find the pattern. id equals this one. This pattern is actually the HTML code I'm trying to modify from, and then /d. So this means that this pattern will match any number of decimals, and then underscore plus string n plus comma double quotes. I'm not sure what this is called, but then that one, and then and again. All right, okay. And then we're gonna try to find this pattern inside this line, and the first pattern we find, we're gonna take it and we're gonna take it as the first pattern we find. We're going to take it and we're going to store it in the number value. Basically, if you see the code will be something like this. It'll be something like this. Wait, I think I messed it up. Okay, ID, and then from codes, and then this. Okay, so this is kind of what we're looking for. This one and this one. We need to update these values if we want to make sure that the numbering is correct. And you might be like, what are these values? These values are actually created to create, these are just parts of the HTML code created by the difference, like the makefile function, and stored in the difference variable. So we're looking for actually these things. Okay, so so this number here is actually this number and this number. I've noticed that these numbers will always keep changing, so we want to grab that and keep it the same. We're interested in changing this one and this one, and also this one and this one. Okay, so how are we going to change it? Obviously, we're going to use the replace function. So line is equal to line.replace. And to replace, we're going to just pass in this thing. I hope I don't miss any of those commas or anything, because if I do, it's going to fail. Okay. Here, remember that we got the number so that we can pass in the number. Okay, so I think I got this right. Did I? Yeah, it should be fine. Okay, so I need to we look for this pattern, and then I need to change it and update this number over here and over here. So in the beginning, it's going to be 0 to 100, but the second loop we do, it's going to be 100 to 200, and then 300 to 400. So it's actually a multiple of 100. So what we can do is we can write equation. So n plus 1 multiplied by 100. That's how we do it. It's 1 multiplied by 100. Right now, it might not be making much sense, but just bear with me, and later on you will be able to understand what's happening here. And also we put comma 1 because we just want to replace the first occurrence of this, and we want to repeat this for the other pattern I was looking for. Okay, wait, the bracket here. Okay, remember I wanted to change for, this one and this one, so we're going to change this to 2 instead of from. And another thing is we can't just we need to update the t-body list element. So to do that, we do t-body list and then bracket n, and then we update that element using this one. Okay, and finally we want to increment it n plus equal 1. Okay, after this loop ends, we will have the correct numbering. Okay, so then we take the t-body, and remember we split it along the new line, so we're just gonna join it back using the join function, using the new lines. So we're gonna join along new lines, t-body list. Okay, now we have the correct t-body. Now we just need to add it to this one. So how do we just add it back to that one? Okay, to do that, we create another list, list diff split. We're gonna split the difference 0, and we're gonna split it along the t-body, because we need to actually paste it above this t-body tag. Okay, after this we update the difference 0 by diff split. Oops. We take the first element of the split, and then we insert the t-body, which we modified here, and then we put in the tag t-body, and then we put in the last part of the difference 0. And then what we want to do is we want to print that we're actually generating the difference. The generating the difference actually takes some time. That's why the code, oh wait, I forgot the codes here. Okay, generating difference takes quite some time because it's actually doing a lot of work on the background. So okay, we have some line to debug. After this, once this loop is done, we will have the difference which we need, and we're gonna open another file, and inside it it'll be diff.html. This diff.html will contain all our information, and we're going to use the write mode as f.write pass in difference 0. Remember, difference 0 has been updated with this loop over here with the t-body. The t-body has been inserted inside the difference 0. And finally, one more thing that needs to be done is, remember over here we created a whole bunch of dummy files. I don't want those dummy files to be there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another for loop, and I'm going to use os.list directory. Using this, I will be able to go into my directory, which is the PyBear directory. Over there I will go in and I will try to search for a pattern of file. So the pattern is file temp and sff. This basically means that the character over here could either be S or F. So if it's S or F, and then dash, and then if there is any digit, any number of digits, .txt, then we want to remove this file. One thing you need to remember is, before running this code, if you do have any file called file temp ff1.txt, it's going to be deleted. So just be careful. Don't if you have such file, just change this pattern. Okay, so os.remove, we're going to use os.remove, and to remove, we're going to remove the file path. So to do that, we use ospath.join path and f. Okay, so now we'll be deleting that temporary file, so we won't have a bunch of junk in our folder. And yeah, that's about it, I think. And this is gonna give the end time. Okay, let me run it. Wait, let me save it first. Saved. It's gonna take a while, actually. Oops, there is some invalid syntax. Yeah, I'm scared about these things here. You need to put the plus over here, otherwise it's not gonna work. It's a little complicated. Okay, let's run it one more time. Oops, more invalid syntax. All right, okay, I forgot more addition operators over here. Okay, now it's working. You see all those temporary files have been created, and now it's generating the difference. And generating the difference will actually take a bunch of time, as you can see. I'm just going to go through the code one more time. I know it all sounds very confusing. So the issue was we had two files that were very big, and we didn't know Python couldn't handle it. So we had to break them down into smaller files and give it to Python so that it could create the difference of every chunk one by one, which could be easier for Python to handle. And then we would take all these differences, and then we would write them down into one final file called the diff.html. But to do that, first we created the diff, the chunk function to to make chunks of the big file, and then we checked if the file is actually over 100. If it's over 100, and if it's not equal to each other, we try to put in some dummy new lines so that they become equal to each other. And then we created a list of lists containing the chunks, and then we created a whole bunch of dummy files in this place over here, and then we used a for loop to go through the dummy files, and we also had to give the path of the dummy files to the makefile function, and we also had to give the contents of the file in list formats over here. And this whole chunk of code here is to actually insert the t-body part into the difference file. And this over here is just the tags. Oh, okay, wait, the code has run. So 124 seconds is around 2 minutes. I know it's a little much, but if you see the amount of work it had to do. Okay, so this is your comparison report. So as you can see, okay, so the thing I was talking about over here, remember I was talking about the numbering or whatever. Where did it go? Okay, so the numbering over here, I was actually talking about this number. So basically what happens is if you don't write that code, it will go from 1 to 100, because every chunk is 100, right? And then over here, it will again start from 1, and then again it will go to 100. So to handle that, we had to do all that stuff. And you might be like, okay, what is from and to and all that stuff, right? Okay, let's just go inside and see the inspect the element. Okay, here you see over here from 1 to 115 and 115, and this one is the 2 1 to 115 115. So this is the pattern I was actually looking for, and these are the numbers I was trying to update. I'm sure when I was writing the code, you guys were just confused, but that's what I was trying to do actually. In any case, wait, let me go to the end of this file. It's a very long file. That's why it took a whole bunch of time. So there's like 2001 lines, and it took around 2 minutes. Let me know if you guys test with even larger files and how long it takes. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you guys have a better solution, please do share it with me. And thank you very much for watching. And if you've enjoyed it, please like, comment if you have any more questions. I know you will have a lot of questions. It's a long video. And please subscribe. That really helps me out. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you guys again.